What's good? It's your boy Trouble T. Roy. Hit, don't get hit, boxing talk. Back with another one. And it goes. So we got some news. November 9th, 2023. Day before my birthday. Hey. So we got some news today. So apparently the IBF has went ahead and decided to strip Terence Crawford of his welterweight title and give the belt to Boots Ennis, Jaron Boots Ennis. So Terence Crawford being now the former undisputed champion of the world, welterweight champion of the world, holding all four major belts, the WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO, has now been stripped by the IBF, and that belt has been given to Jaron Ennis, who was chilling on his couch, probably watching the Hulu, or actually probably was in the gym, because he stay in the gym every day. He in the gym or he out running. At least that's what it appears on Twitter all the time. But IBF went ahead and did that to Terence Crawford. Me personally, I'm not mad about it. I'm just actually kind of confused for the simple fact that when Errol Spence had the belt, things were, I'll say, a lot different. This is where it comes down to me feeling like, once again, another sanctioning body proves, and this ain't the first time the IBF has done something like this, but I'm more used to like maybe the WBC or WBA doing things like this, especially when it comes to, let's say, PBC fighters. And then you have the WBO, who has always been known as the top ranked belt. So all these sanctioning bodies always had these weird things going on, but I've always thought that IBF would be the more by the books, following rules a little better type of sanctioning body, but they clearly have proven again not to be that, just as well as the other three, by taking the belt from Terence Crawford, in my opinion. The thing that makes it weird for me is the fact that they claim that they sent, I don't know how true it is, because this is actually my first time hearing about this, which is interesting, but reading one of the articles written about this, they state that the IBF has sent a letter to Terence Crawford and his team saying that he needed to basically negotiate a fight with Jaron Boots Ennis, because he was being declared the mandatory for the IBF title, which is very interesting. Very interesting. Very interesting. One of the funny things about this is that Jaron Boots Ennis at first was ranked under the WBO. I believe Virgil Ortiz was too, but I could be wrong about that. But I know for a fact Boots was ranked under the WBO to, I believe, number 2 and number 1 at the time to fight Terence Crawford, when Terence Crawford was only holding the WBO belt. And for some reason decided to drop out of the WBO rankings and put himself on the IBF rankings, which the IBF at the time was being held by Errol Spence.
So Boots, what happens now? Obviously everybody's hoping to see Errol Spence. He's here tonight, fight Bud Crawford. You're probably going to move up into a mandatory position should they get that fight on. What would you like to do now in the interim as next?
Anybody right now can get it right now, but I'm the IBF number 1, contender, and I think Mr. Big Fish in here is so it's time to go fishing.
Well, there's Errol right there. We saw before the fight, the bone marrow and Jackson Ramirez.
Now, I don't recall at any time hearing anything about Jaron Boots Ennis being made a mandatory for Errol Spence to fight. That's what makes it interesting. Now, Errol Spence has been the IBF champion since 2018, I believe. 18. Actually, 17. And his first fight after beating Kell Brook and becoming the IBF champion, which was his first belt that he won. His first defense after he won that belt was against Peterson, who came up from 140. I don't know if he had came up to fight that fight right away, but I know he was coming up recently from 140. Lamont Peterson coming up from 140 to fight Errol Spence, right? And which made things a little interesting. Actually, he did fight David Avanesian before he fought Errol Spence. So he had a fight or two. I don't know how many fights before he fought Errol Spence at 147. But the main thing is that he was Errol Spence's next defense after becoming IBF champion, and that was within about half a year after becoming champion, if I'm correct. Wasn't a long time. Went straight into it. Good fight. Errol Spence dominated, obviously. Stopped him earlier than the 12 rounds that was scheduled. And then the IBF comes in about a year later and mandates Ocampo. Makes Ocampo the mandatory for Errol Spence to fight. And that's about a year later after Errol Spence becomes champion. So they went ahead and made Ocampo a champion. He stops Ocampo. And after that fight, after that mandatory, Errol Spence never had a IBF mandatory again. All the way up until the point he lost his belts to Terence Crawford. Never had another mandatory. I don't think he had a mandatory with any of his belts after that Ocampo fight. I think everything else was just regular defenses. You know, just he this is who he was going to fight. He fought Sean Porter for the WBC, and he fought who was it? Ugas, who took the belt from Pacquiao, fought him for the WBA, which made him the 3-belt holder before fighting Terence Crawford. But no mandatories. That's my whole point right there. No mandatories after fighting Ocampo, who he fought over a year after becoming the IBF champion. But Terence Crawford, after beating Errol Spence July 31st of 2023, 4 months later in November, all of a sudden being stripped for not negotiating and making a fight with Boots Ennis after they supposedly sent a letter back in August. During the time that the basically Terence Crawford and Errol Spence came to a contractual agreement that there would be a rematch. And now the only thing that could stop that rematch from happening is if Errol Spence and Terence Crawford agreed that the fight, hey, we just ain't gonna do the fight. It ain't happening. It ain't worth fighting. It ain't worth doing it again. You know, the money ain't there, or maybe Earl just don't want to get beat again that way, or however, whatever the case may be, they decide not to fight. Then they can go ahead and rip the contract and move on about their lives, which is what I think is still what's going to happen, but none of that has been confirmed. As far as we know, as far as I know, the rematch is still in play. So the IBF decides to do this and ignore the fact that Terence Crawford and Errol Spence are still technically in some kind of negotiations for their contracted rematch. They have a rematch clause. So that's where things just get interesting. How do they have, or why would they shoot to do something like this knowing that this fight is still supposed to happen? Why would they just throw Boots Ennis in the mix all of a sudden when really Boots Ennis didn't want to fight for the WBO when Terence Crawford, that was the belt that he was holding, the only belt that he was holding. Boots Ennis literally left the WBO to go to the IBF and never tried to fight Errol Spence talked all kind of shit about Terence Crawford. Even said that he called Terence Crawford out back in 2018. Which is like nobody even knew who he was back in 2018. I don't even know who he was fighting back in 2018. You was still a baby. I don't even know if you had your beard yet.
They knew stuff.
What we know?
You know? I'm just saying. But, again, I don't blame Jaron Ennis for them giving him the belt. For them, you know, they handed him the belt. He got emailed the belt. They gave him the belt, and, you know, it just doesn't make sense. The way these sanctioning bodies just play around with these boxers. I mean, you got Jamal, who's been sitting on the WBC middleweight championship for 2.5 years. No activity, nothing documented saying that he's hurt or sick or anything other than Mauricio saying, you know, backing him by, you know, word of mouth. Yeah, you know, Jamal, he's just working on it. 2.5 years, and you ain't even put him as a champion recess. You just letting him sit on the belt. You know, just yeah. He's not feeling good, so until he feels better, he just gets to sit on his ass with the belt. And apparently, just recently, I don't know, whenever the video came out where he did his little face-to-face on Zoom or whatever with Jose Benavidez, who is Jamal's next opponent. Jamal says that he doesn't even care about the belt. And my whole thing with that is I don't think that PBC cares for you enough to want to see you do anything with the belt. I think, me personally, just like with this situation and other situations, I think the PBC is only trying to protect the belt. They don't care about Jamal as the fighter, because what does Jamal have to offer? His last fight against Montiel, you look like you didn't have shit left for boxing. Your next fight, you're not even defending the belt, so because you're fighting at a catch weight. So it's almost like they're just trying to put the belt in position to be kept, not put you in the position to be, you know, successful with the belt or whatever, or keep the belt, because they're not even allowing you to fight for the belt next. You know, they probably don't trust that you'll keep it. They probably think you'll lose it to Benavidez just based off of your last previous performance and the time that you spent out of the ring and all the fuckery that's been going on with you outside the ring. They don't trust you. They just want to keep that belt. Thing with Tank Davis. Tank Davis literally just fighting whoever he wants, when he wants, if he wants, you know. But yet they're keeping him with this WBA status, which if I remember correctly, was supposed to have been gotten rid of, because they've gotten rid of the WBA regular status, which is what Tank is at 135. They gotten rid of that little situation, WBA regular status, I believe over the last couple of years in every other division. I think the only people who still possibly hold that is I believe David Morrell at 168 and somebody in the heavyweight division. I forget who it was, but those are the only two outside of Tank's WBA regular. I think those are the only other two WBA regular champions that boxing has now, if I'm correct. I could be wrong, but correct me if I am wrong and let me know who else. But as far as I know, the WBA is supposed to be getting rid of those titles. But I think, especially specifically with Tank, I believe they're letting him hold on to that status. So once Devin Haney drops all the other belts because he already dropped the WBC belt at 135 since he moved up to 140. But once he drops the WBA, IBF, and WBO, Tank will be elevated to a WBA championship, champion, which will make him a 2-division real champion, not a 3-division fake champion. This will make him a 2-division real champion, you know, and then he goes on and does whatever the fuck he wants with that championship from there. Who knows with that, you know. And now we have Boots Ennis, who Boots is not an actual PBC fighter, but he has fought with and under the PBC banner for a while, but he was really a Showtime fighter. But now that Showtime is gone, I can see where they might have said, okay, Boots, since you are ranked #1, you're the interim IBF champion, we will go ahead and go ahead and take this belt from Terence Crawford since he didn't meet his, make the arrangements to fight you. We'll go ahead and give you that belt, take it from Crawford, give it to you, let you hold on to that, knowing that you was never trying to fight Crawford in the first place, because you wouldn't have left the WBO rankings if you wanted to fight Crawford. You just wanted a belt, so here you go. Now you have a belt. Now represent us at the PBC. We'll start paying you like for real, and we'll make you a PBC fighter. And this is only what I think is going on. We'll make you a PBC fighter. You fight for us. You hold on to that belt because you seem like the most talented right now at 147, and go from there. This is what I'm thinking. I think this is all PBC working. Me personally, I know people probably call me a PBC hater, a basher, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but this is just what I see, because I've known over the years PBC works like this. This is why fighters under PBC are coming out and being exposed that they aren't as good as they are, because all these years, most of these people who act blind to the situation, the PBC has done this for years and tried to make sure there's a reason that the term in-house has really became a thing since the PBC has been around in boxing. The term other side of the street was never said until the PBC became a thing, Then, all these different things like that, it's like, it's just kind of obvious in my opinion. This is the PBC at work. They've done everything before Terence Crawford was the champion to try to keep him from being champion, try to keep him from getting what he deserves. Now, after he's the champion, it's still their way of saying, well, yeah, you got the belts, but we still gonna snatch we gonna be able to do what we want and make sure that you ain't got everything that you want. We can't control everything, but we could do this and that and the other, you know what I'm saying? So, this is how I feel. This is what I'm running with now until I get more information. I mean, this is what it's looking like to me. It's what it's sounding like and looking like. And yeah, man. It is what it is. I mean, we'll see what happens. It just doesn't make sense that knowing that, like I said, Terence Crawford and Spence were in the middle of trying to figure out this whole thing with the rematch. You just randomly decide, oh yeah, well, since you didn't do this, and make negotiations right after you beat Spence to fight Boots, we're going to strip you. Only 4 months later, we're not even really going to give you a chance to breathe. We just going to strip you and give it to him, and then you got to deal with that. It's like, it just don't make sense. What would be funny to me, though, is Terence Crawford said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to go back to 147, because he was talking about moving up to 154 regardless of the rematch or not. He could say, I'm going to go back to 147, and I'm going to fight Boots and get that belt back. Now, that would be funny, because I do believe that Terence Crawford beats Boots Ennis. I believe that he's just a more, between experience, him still being very, athletic, healthy, staying in the gym the way he does and all those things. Mainly experience and ring IQ, I think he has over the younger, possibly as strong, maybe stronger, slick Boots Ennis that we do have right now today. I just think Boots ain't seen enough to be able to stand and fight in the same ring, fight with Terence Crawford right now. Because Boots Ennis, he hasn't had no real competition that could in any way give you a clue what it's like to fight somebody like Terence Crawford. Just like I believe the same thing about Errol Spence, even with the names that he had and the amount of fights that he had and his experience as being a champion. The guys that he fought, I don't think any of them could prepare him, Errol Spence, for somebody like Terence Crawford. I just don't think so. And I believe the fight that showed that he was not well enough or not good enough to beat Terence Crawford for me was the fight versus Sean Porter, which is a common opponent with Terence Crawford, who was the first and the only person to stop Sean Porter. So, I look at things like that. and that just tells me something about if Terence Crawford was to fight Boots right now. I just don't think Boots has enough in the bag to pull out for Terence Crawford. The tool ain't enough tools in my opinion, so that's just me. But yeah, with all that said, Terence Crawford has been stripped of the IBF title, and the title has been given, emailed, or whatever you want to call it, to Jaron Boots Ennis. And we definitely are just gonna have to see what else happens to build up with this story, because it seems like there's a lot being left out possibly, or maybe it's not. Maybe it just is what it is. Maybe the IBF is literally just going and following their own rules, and they're really just for the time they're choosing to follow their rules now, picking and choosing like a lot of these sanctioning bodies do, so I don't know. It could be just that simple. We will never know until we know, if we ever know. So anyways, this is Trouble T Roy, Don't Get Hit Boxing Talk. And go ahead, like, comment, share, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll holler at y'all, alright? Peace.